Thanks for joining us here today, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, we'll get you into the military.
So my name's Chris Winckel. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, 16 years in the Coast Guard. Originally from a town in Illinois called Gurnee. It's where
Gurnee.
Six Flags Great America is, up that way. About an hour north of Chicago. Joined the military in '95, got in the Marine Corps because I was basically a screw up. It was either, I was doing a lot of things that could be detrimental to me, and I needed to get some discipline. So I joined the Marines, went in open contract, left 2 weeks after I walked into the recruiter's office. Did 4 years in there, decided that it wasn't completely for me, got out, was out for about 8 months driving semis, hated that. Then I got into the Coast Guard. One of my buddies down here in Orlando suggested it, and at the time I didn't even know what they did. So I looked into it. They got some really cool missions. Figured what's another 4 years, and then ended up doing 16 in there and retiring at 20. So I retired in 2016. Been retired going on 8 years now. I loved my time in there. For the Marines, I was a truck driver. And then for the Coast Guard, I started out on board cutters as a boarding team member, boarding ships, doing fisheries, migrant ops, counter drug work. When I left that, got into becoming an AMT, an aviation maintenance technician. So an aircraft mechanic, an AMP basically. I could have gotten my AMP, but I decided that I was done working on aircraft. When I was in there, the reason I went for aviation is because they have a program called HITRON, Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron.
Okay.
So our job was to fly around in the back of a helicopter. Back then it was an Augusta 109. Now they're doing it in the Dolphins, the 65s, the orange ones you see on all the movies and all of that. They actually had our helicopters in Bad Boys 2.
Oh, really?
I think that's, you see the scene when they're, take them down, Coast Guard.
Did you put the engine?
Yeah, there were some of the guys, our guys were actually in the helicopters flying them. So our job was to fly around with the bolt action 50 cal.
Nice.
And put a rope on the door, and I'd shoot the engines out of the drug boats when they ran from us. I've shot out 25 motors, 3 on each boat, so I've gotten 8 boats under my belt, and then one was a Penga, which is a small resupply ship, and he was on the throttle running from us, and I took the motor out of his hand.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. He jumped up, patted himself down, thought that I fragged him with the engine. But with each bust, we got about 3,000 to 5,000 pounds of uncut cocaine off of the streets. My record was 21,000 pounds of uncut cocaine, and they said it was like a $1.2 million street value or something like that. So we did that when we were out there, and then again we do migrant ops. So the migrants that were in the ships, we would board them and detain them and turn them back over to whatever country they needed to go to. The military-wise, I loved it. I think every kid should do some kind of service to the country.
Yeah, we talked about that,
We had discussed it before. Not everyone can shoulder a rifle, but those who can't or don't feel that, then maybe they should go for a Habitats for Humanity or hurricane relief, working for FEMA or something like that.
Some kind of service to the country.
I was raised. It was my mom, my 2 sisters, single mom. You're talking in the 70s and 80s. There wasn't a lot of support for us then, so we grew up pretty poor. The Marine or the military in general changed my life. I now have a bachelor's degree because of them in education. When I went through there, I graduated with honors. I had a 3.7 GPA. Only had 1 B in my entire bachelor's program. Other than that, everything was A's across the board.
Much different than regular school.
Right. But and the military gave me that discipline to be able to go in there and go, okay, I need to set this amount of time. And at the time I had a wife and 4 stepkids. So I was balancing all of that, plus working full time for the sheriff's office as their range master.
Okay.
It was one of those things that the military helped me organize that, taught me how to basically have the discipline to get everything done and the motivational drive. And I don't think I would have done that in my 20s. And before the military, I wouldn't have had the discipline to get it done the way I did.
Hear that.
Now I work for St. Pete College. I'm a FDLE adjunct or FDLE instructor, so Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Okay.
I teach all their high liabilities. So there's 4 of them in the state of Florida. There is firearms, first aid, defensive tactics, and driving. So the law enforcement guys, the cadets, the people that want to go into law enforcement, I take them out and teach them how to shoot their gun, drive their cars, handcuffing, and then their first aid from CPR all the way up to, you know, more trauma type stuff for them. Been doing that 6 years now, 7 years.
Okay.
I love giving
Defensive
back.
driving, huh?
Yeah, we go out there. You know, it's not as cool as it sounds. We're not doing like an EVOC course or, you know, pitting or anything like that. But, you know, it's a lot of fun getting the kids out there. A lot of them have never, and when I say kids, I'm talking, you know, anywhere from 20, sometimes 18 is their youngest, to 40s, late 40s. I think we had one that was 52.
Kids.
Was one of our older, and you know, just to me, they're all kids at that point. But they come through. Same thing. We do like a paramilitary style boot camp with them. We've got them for about 6 months if they're law enforcement, or about 4 months if they're corrections. I've trained officers anywhere from, well, there's a big thunder, anywhere from Sarasota, pretty much all of Pinellas County. If in the last 6 years, if it's a corrections officer or a Pinellas County sheriff, I've trained them coming out of the police academy. And then we do, you know, all the other surrounding areas. So Bel Air Bluffs, Pinellas Park, you know, just any of the agencies in the surrounding area, Pasco County as well.
Keeping yourself busy, huh?
I try, and then I do real estate on the side as well, so I'm a realtor. So and again, the military helps me, you know, be able to organize all that and, you know, keep it all flowing, so that I don't end up forgetting things, you know. Plus balancing the family life, you know, keeping the wife happy.
So you're pretty active in the community.
I try. The other thing, you know, you and I both sit on the Veterans Association here in the Chamber of Commerce. We're doing great things with that. I'm really enjoying that aspect of it, you know, and doing something like this, bringing vets in to have them share their stories and things like that. You know, trying to encourage some of these younger individuals that are lost, shall we say, or don't have a path yet, maybe getting them in the military, you know, or getting them into law enforcement, or, you know, first responders. One of the key questions we ask the kids there is, what have you ever done for your community? And most of them give us that blank stare. And, you know, I look at them and go, oh, I have been working for the community since '95, since I was 22. I'm 50 now. You know, that you're looking at 30 years of service to the community. You know, and I think that's key. We have to be able to give back as well as what we take, and then return it and, you know, pay it forward, kind of a thing, which I know you're big into as well.
Very much so.
You know, we just did that, the veterans clinic, and that was a great day for us to kind of walk around, and help all the veterans that were coming in and get their benefits, and, you know, just things like that, you know.
So what else do you do in the community to keep yourself active?
I mean, you know, I got a motorcycle, I got a trike. I have some inner ear issues, so I can't be on two wheels anymore. So I wasn't able to ride motorcycles for years. I got back into that. I just did, I did almost 1,000 miles in a month for veteran suicide. Raised about $1,200 towards that program. I've had 11 friends kill themselves now. You know, it's one of those things. It's a little near and dear to me, and it, you know, it's a little heart wrenching at times when I start to talk about it. So you see me well up. It's, you know, it is what it is.
You're good.
But yeah, you know, a couple of them did it in front of their families. I wish they would have just reached out. You know, we're only a phone call away. That's the sad part. You know, and I think with what we're doing with the Veterans Association, hopefully we'll prevent some of that, and you know, kind of get these guys the help that they need. And like we were talking about, we're doing the wall over at St. Mark's. It's a veterans, I don't want to say memorial. It's more of an honor wall for them. We're gonna paint it. We're gonna put some pictures up. Put all the branches of the service in there. The gentlemen that are in there, I think one of them, she said, is almost 100 years old.
That's great.
And they've got their pictures up, and we're gonna get those up. And I was suggesting putting, you know, their before and after, like when they were in, and then who they currently are now, so you can kind of associate the two, which I thought that was neat. You know, we're doing stuff like that. I know with the board association, we've got like some just different events coming up. November we have that suicide prevention, and we're teamed up with Till Valhalla now. That's phenomenal. I mean, that's a big deal. So same thing, they do basically preventing soldier, sailor, you know, veteran suicide. They're strictly non-for-profit. Everything that they do goes right back into just helping the veterans, not actually, you know, so we say lining their own pockets, or putting profit in their accounts. They're just there to do good things, and I think that's phenomenal.
And how did you find the transition from military to civilian life?
So that's actually difficult. I had 120 days of vacation time coming to me, and what I ended up doing, which last year, and they put me in MWR, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation for the Coast Guard, and I loved it. It was probably one of the best gigs I ever had. My job was to go around and basically hustle and get donations, set up Christmas parties. I'd cook hamburgers and hot dogs out in front of the exchange for the guys, and so we could get money to help the morale. If it was a hot day, I'd get a bunch of ice cream on this little trike, and I'd go ride around the air station handing out popsicles and ice cream cones to the guys to just kind of keep them happy. When I was doing that, I had, like I said, the vacation time. I took Monday through Thursday off, and I'd just come in every Friday for 6 months. So, and that way I could still get paid. But during that transition out, losing my buddies, and what I mean by losing, just not having the time, the camaraderie that we spent, it was difficult, and I know a lot of vets struggle with that. The other thing, everyone thinks, I'm just going to sit at home and not do anything. And I got all my honey-do list stuff, the list done and all the stuff I needed at the house. And then it was like, well, I could have a drink. And 1 turned to 2, turned to 3, turned to 4. And I realized I was drinking a little more than I probably should. So I needed to find things to get me up and moving and motivated, and that's the college got involved with that. The transition out, you have to have some kind of path, some kind of program. One of the things that I would love to see the military do that they don't do is, if you're retiring, put you as close to where you want to retire as possible. Sure. So like myself, I wanted to stay here in Palm Harbor. I bought my house here. I love this area, near and dear to my heart. I was out of Air Station Clearwater is where I retired out of. Being able to have my house bought and have my life set up, that made my transition easier. I didn't have to leave and then transfer all the way across the country and go find a house there or somewhere to live and kind of uproot your life and then put it down somewhere else. So if you're that retiree, try and get to that last place where you're going to be near to home, where you can kind of start getting that set up. The other thing is, and I tell this to the law enforcement guys on the last day I deal with them, I say, guys, I got 2 rules for you. Number 1, when you go home and you're talking to your wife, your loved one, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, 30 minutes about complaining about work, and then be done with it. Same with if you're out with your military buddies. The chief, the sergeant, whoever, the bosses, they might have upset you. Don't let them ruin your whole weekend or your whole night by just sitting there. You're not going to change anything. Right. So if you're out with your cohorts, 30 minutes, and then we're done talking about work. Unless it's funny stuff, then it's fine. But the darker stuff, you don't let it consume you. The other thing is, I found civilian friends, people that I had things in common with. Whether it was just having a beer, going out boating, riding motorcycles, whatever it was, and they weren't military guys, or so. I could see that there was life after that and start to kind of associate with normal people. as normal as
that's such a thing.
Well, every vet knows that we have some dark, sick sense of humor. And law enforcement and nurses, all those first responders. It's how we deal with some of the darkness that we see. We have got to joke about it. In other words, it just sits inside of us, and you crawl into a bottle of pills and a bottle of alcohol, or commit suicide. It's, I don't want to be that dark, but it's just part of the process.
It's the truth, though.
Yeah. So like Jake said, just having friends, civilian friends, people that you can go golfing with. That it's not about the military. It's not about what you saw at work that week, or and transitioning out, having that plan. I do have a very loving wife. She's a rock. And we take care of it. You've met her.
Yeah, good one.
We take care of each other, and we're always there for each other. We're best friends.
That's what it should be. I'll tell you did a phenomenal job staying on the right side of the tracks.
Trying.
It's people don't realize exactly what you mentioned. Sometimes when the transition comes out, they're used to being part of something much bigger than themselves, and they come out and they really can't find that, and they get wind up accidentally even finding the solace in a bottle or a pill or something like that. So.
Well, I had I had this one guy, he was at work with me, and this is when we were up in Jacksonville. His wife was sick, his kid was sick at home. We were supposed to do a requalification for our rifles that evening. And I'm like, just go home, man. Mm-hmm. And, well, no, I want to get this done. This is really important. I said, you are not the intricate cog that makes this machine run. And sometimes we forget that. And, you know, we start putting our family and loved ones on that back burner. We can't put them on that back burner all the time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they need to be in front of everything else, you know, and finding that balance between, you know, the military lifestyle and your loved ones, you know, so that they're not completely forgotten. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, my wife knows, and even my ex-wife, you know, if they asked me, I was going. I was going to do whatever they needed me to do at a drop of a hat and just go there. You know, just it's what you sign up for.
Even at the demise of your own self.
Mm-hmm. You know, if you would have asked me when I first joined at 22, would I be here today? I figured I wouldn't. I figured I was going to die in battle or something like that. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't. Don't get me wrong. You know, but it's kind of the mentality that you, especially if you're going in like the Marine Corps or something like that, that you need. You know, just basically going, I'm okay with it. You know, I'm dying for a good reason. You know, the gentlemen that are overseas that have passed and you know have died. I think it's wonderful. You know, that they died for something, for some kind of meaning. I've had other friends who've come back. You know, a couple tours in Iraq, made it back, and then got hit by a car. You know, that to me is a waste. You know, going through all that traumatic experience to be killed in such a meaningless way. And he had just had a son. He had an infant that was like 6 months old. So, you know, if you can die for a reason, I think it's kind of better at times. So I get asked a lot by individuals, you know, what made you stay in 20? What made you stay in 30? And I tell these young guys that are thinking about 4 and 8 years getting out of the military, I go, look, I'm going to give you this word of advice. I've talked to guys who've done 4, 8, 12, and as they're getting out, they look back and they go, I wish I would have stayed. I wish I would have finished my 20 or 30 years. I have never, ever talked to a gentleman that has retired after 20 or 30 years that said, I wish I would have gotten out 4. Right. Not one. So the proof's in the pudding at the end. That, you know, yes, it's a long time to get there, but it's definitely worth sticking around if it's for you for the long haul. There's a ton of benefits for you. You learn a lot. You get a ton of training and education in it. So, you know, I would highly advise individuals to consider doing the military for 20 to 30 years. You know?
I say once you get past that 10-year mark, it's all downhill.
Yeah, and you know, also when you're in there, the first 4 go slow, and next thing you're like, holy cow, it was 20. Exactly. I can't believe I was been retired 8. You know.
Thank you, Chris, for being here today, taking your time. We thank you for your heroism and your bravery for the country.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Just another day.